It was Texas, it was Tennessee. It was what I had coming to me.
Welcome in, folks. You have arrived at the Texas to Tennessee podcast. My name is Steve. To my upper left is Soul Gravy. And tonight, we couldn't be more excited to have our friend Tennessee Jet on the show. TJ, welcome in.
It's good to be welcomed. Good to be welcomed. Looking forward to it, Steve.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think what we'll do here, normally I have the artist introduce themselves, but I'm going to call an audible and I'm going to introduce you. And then you can go back and correct me on all the things that I got wrong. Most of this is actually from memory, so there's probably some things that might not be correct. But Tennessee Jet is an independent singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, putting out his own music for the last 12 years. Is based out of Hugo, Oklahoma. Born in Belfouche, South Dakota, and raised near Noble, Oklahoma. Pops was a bronc rider, mom was a barrel racer. TJ started writing poems while killing time at the rodeo. I think, TJ, did you play third base?
Yeah, I played all over the place. But,
All over the place.
I was more of a middle infielder and a pitcher, but yeah, I played third base as well.
Okay. TJ was a salty utility player and played baseball in college. Spent some time living and working in Nashville. He and his wife Tiffany were on an episode of Picked Off, which is available on Prime if you want to go check that out. Interesting show. TJ is also a fan of High Chews, Theo Vaughn, and the movie Giant. They have a deep love for all their animals. And TJ's one-man band show is pretty mind-blowing for us mortals. So if you ever have a chance to see that, make sure you do that. Most importantly, especially having TJ here tonight, he has a new album releasing in less than 3 hours. So the new album is titled Ranchero. You can find it in a couple different places if you'd like to pre-save the album. So it'll be out at 11 o'clock Central Time. We've made it easy for you, so we'll put it in the notes of the YouTube Live, and then it's also on, if you find myself on TikTok, hit the link tree. It's the first one on there. As you know, those pre-saves are important to help folks get on playlists and whatnot. So anyway, that was my crack at your bio.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. You did some digging from some things that I forgot about from back in the day. Let's see. Yeah, my parents rodeoed. That was really early on. I don't even know that I knew I was writing poems necessarily first things I was writing, just kind of creative things. And that was probably a little bit later because I was probably 5 when they were rodeoing. So, but yeah, so I started playing baseball early on. That was what I was going to do. You mentioned Picked Off. That's interesting. I'd forgotten about that. But yeah, my wife Tiffany and I, we went on a reality show where you go around and try to pick up different, at antique stores or junk stores or thrift stores. You try to pick up different things and see you can, pick out the best things. It's really Tiffany's domain. She's great at that stuff. I was just kind of going along for the ride. It sounded like something fun to do, but yeah, I won't say who won that show, but
Little hook and
somewhere
tease.
out there.
Yeah,
it's somewhere
sure.
out there. But that's some digging he did there.
Well, we try to, we don't do many things well, but we do like to do our research. And since we're talking about research, this little bit that we're going to do here has to do with your hometown, Hugo. So this part of the show, I asked Soul Gravy who the famous folks are from your hometown, and he tries to tell me why they're famous. So this won't take long, but a little bit about Hugo, Oklahoma, named for the French novelist Victor Hugo. 2 of your favorite books, Soul Gravy, Les Miserables and Hunchback of Notre Dame. That helps.
Definitely, yeah.
Population of about 5,000, 10 miles north of the Red River in southeast Oklahoma. Interestingly enough, it's the winter home for many traveling circuses. At one point, they had over 20 different circus companies that were based out of Hugo. So pretty cool. All right, here's the list of folks. I have confidence in you, Soul.
Uh-oh.
BJ Thomas.
Yep. familiar with his work. Yep. Oh.
Little hooked on a feeling. Raindrops. Yep. All right. One for one. This one a little tougher. Bill Grant.
No, not familiar.
All right. Bill's, I mean, I would say kind of a local celebrity. He's had, I think, his festival on for about 55, 56 years. It's the Bill Grant Bluegrass Festival.
Okay.
And pretty significant. He worked with Emmylou Harris. He's an amazing mandolin player. I think it is the longest running bluegrass festival west of the Mississippi, if I remember that right. Ray Wiley Hubbard.
Familiar with Hubbard.
Yeah, we're going to hopefully get a little more familiar with him tonight. Born in Soper, actually, but grew up in Hugo before he moved to Oak Cliff. Bill Moyers. This is right on the line here. I'm not sure if you'll get this one.
No, nothing I know of.
All right, he was a press secretary for Lyndon Johnson, and then also pretty well-known video journalist. I think was on CBS maybe, like the morning show or whatever.
Okay.
Richard Jr. Turner.
I know some Richard Turners, but no, I don't.
Not
think
this
it's
one.
The right one. No.
Richard played nose guard for the Packers, and then this one might be my favorite one. This is Wallace Willis.
No.
Wallace penned the song "Sweet Low, Sweet Chariot." So shout out to Wallace. And then one thing that's kind of I think pretty significant, and maybe TJ can tell us a little bit about this, but Showman's Rest is an area where folks are interred, and a bunch of famous cowboys: Freckles Brown, Lane Frost, Todd Waitley, and then a lot of folks in the circus industry are all buried there, not too terribly far from where TJ is. So anyway, that's Hugo, Oklahoma. Hopefully everybody takes a little bit more away tonight.
Yes, it's known as Circus City, USA, and it's actually I didn't grow up in Hugo, as you mentioned. I grew up in Noble for a little while, which is just south of Norman, and I lived in North Dakota in high school for 3 years, and then it's so cold I got the heck out of there. But North Dakota is beautiful too. But Tiffany grew up here, and I've gotten quite the tour of Hugo, from the places like Showman's Rest, all the places that she used to drive the back roads with her friends, and just all the coolest parts of Hugo. I've seen them.
Nice.
And the graveyard in particular is a place that Tiffany and I like to just walk and bring the dog out there to walk and just unwind, and it's just a real calming place. I've written a lot of songs, kind of got them started out there walking around. There's a song of mine, Stray Dogs. It's literally talking about that graveyard, and I mentioned it in a song of mine called Josephine. And it's just kind of you try to use the area that you live in as inspiration for your work. And so when we came back to Nashville, or from Nashville, I guess about 2019, right before maybe 2018, right before the apocalypse, 2020.
Right.
And so I kind of reconnected with Oklahoma, and a different part of Oklahoma than I've been from. And so you try to use all those things to inspire your songs. This next record in particular that's coming out in a few hours, it's very Oklahoma centric. I think half the songs there's some reference to Oklahoma or a place in Oklahoma or something. So it's very, very just kind of leaning into those red dirt roots and just trying to absorb it. And then it's all input and output. So you're inputting your surroundings and the people and the places, and then you're outputting them in your music and your songwriting, your art.
Wonderful. Well, shout out to the Oklahomies. They're all going to be excited, as is everybody. But yeah, for sure. All right, TJ, this is the weirdest question I'll ask you tonight. But it's kind of a thinker's question, so I think you might actually appreciate it. So we'll see. It's called the pie question. And I'm going to give you a pie. I want you to simply cut it up into 4 sections. The 4 sections are creation of the song, songwriting, recording, performing is another slice, and then the final slice is running your business. So running your own individual music business. Where do you naturally gravitate in terms of any of those 4 slices?
Can you remind me of what the slices are again?
Yeah, you bet. So there's songwriting, recording,
Okay.
performing, and then the business.
Okay, gotcha. Well, songwriting's where it all starts. Everything kind of branches out from that. So I guess that would be definitely where everything starts. I have a love-hate with the recording process because it's in a sense, records are never really finished. You just stop working on them because you can constantly, especially if you're producing your own records, you're always hearing parts that you wish you'd added to the song, or parts that maybe a different tempo or just a different approach, because songs can be performed in so many ways. They're just kind of living, breathing things. Even when a song is put down on a record, it's going to be different live, and then it might be different live, a year later and 5 years later. I don't think they're ever really finished. And so I love the recording process. That part of it, it's great. It also will drive you crazy because, you're like I said, you've got to narrow down your options. If you give yourself too many options, then you'll never get anything finished. You've got to in some way try to limit those options. At least I've found it's easier to be creative within some parameter. Like if you told a painter, hey, paint me something, and you can use the walls, the floor, the ceiling, you can go outside and do it, you can use any color, you can use any, then they're not going to get anything most likely done, or if they will, it'll take forever. You've got to say, like, okay, why don't you paint me something using just black and white and grayscale tones, and like on this canvas this size, and why don't you paint me a piece of fruit or something, or whatever it is, because you've got to give people some sort of limitation to be creative within that. And so the recording process is it's extremely, like I said, love hate. I love it when it's finished. It's also a little bit, you got to step back from it. It's hard for me to listen to things right when they're done because I've spent so much time with them. And so I like to kind of give myself some distance. And usually I find it used to be longer than this, but usually about a year later, I can start listening to things and listen to them as an overall big picture thing, like a fan would listen to something, as opposed to someone that's going there critically in the production mode, because you're just picking everything apart and everything sounds like separated elements. But fans don't typically listen to things in individual elements. They listen to the overall broad strokes of it. And it's really the better way to kind of receive music. But when you're in production mode, every little nuance, you're listening to every different drum and every different part. And so it's hard to kind of step back and really take it in.
Makes sense.
What was the third piece of the pie?
Performing.
Oh, performing live. Yeah, that's great too. It's just a matter of like I said, I'm constantly reinventing and turning songs inside out, and then trying to see how they hit people. Some songs kind of come alive after you've been playing them out a while, and some songs you play out for a while and kind of figure them out, and then they're easy in the studio. The last part, the business part, and I'm sure this is common with probably just about every musician you talk to. Least favorite part, the most frustrating, annoying part of the whole process. Just the nature of the beast. There's no way around it. Tiffany does. She manages and books, and honestly does most of the driving too. She's always out there, and so she takes the heaviest burden of that part. But we like to keep things in house. I just don't like. I think you start involving too many people in the process and of everything, and it just becomes something different. And people don't pull their weight, and you start thinking like, well, can just do this better ourselves and do it better independently. And oftentimes you can, sometimes you can't, but it's really hard to find a great team outside of people that are, and you can't get much more invested than the artist and the artist's wife. It's
for sure.
Be more, and she's got a 90% commission rate, which seems a little bit high, but I figure,
it is what it is.
It is what it is. What are you going to do about it,
So just one follow-up question, and so I'll throw it over to you.
Okay.
how, in terms of the business side, how influential was your experience leaving or coming from Nashville to back to Oklahoma? How much did that impact? Because you obviously saw a whole different experience when you were in Nashville. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, there's not really any type of music business in Hugo, of course. So you're pretty much just out in the desert, here. So it's pros and cons. You are away from everything, and so it's you're gonna have to drive, or you're gonna have to to go where the action is. There's but because you're away from everything, you do have a lot of time to think and create, and not be distracted by the business side of it. But Nashville's such a broad place. I don't. It's a lot of people will just blanket it as just like it's just evil Nashville, this industry thing, and of course there's that element, but there's that element in every business.
Sure.
There's also just awesome. Nashville's great too. It's the best musicians, some of the greatest songwriters, performers are all in Nashville. It's really the place to be. It's an awesome place. We loved it there. I was just gone so much that we realized that we spend about 2 weeks in Nashville when we're off the road, and then the week we get back into town from being off the road, you're kind of adjusting, and then you got to adjust about a week before you leave. So how much really time are you using it efficiently? That town's really made more so, in my opinion, for people that are going there purely to write a commercial country Nashville,
Sure.
Nashville country type song. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's if you're moving there to do that, I think there's no better place to do it.
Right.
But if you're moving there, you're going to be touring all the time. You're probably not going to get as much out of the town as you could.
That makes sense. Good answer.
What got you to Nashville? I mean, how did that process go as far as when did you decide to move there? What were your reasons at the time for moving?
Well, we moved to California first. We moved to Los Angeles to make a record, and was supposed to be out there for about 3 months. Ended up being out there for about 2 years, and so we came back from there just flat broke with the record that I'd spent so much time on. I was just over it, and then moved on musically, and so it was kind of a downtime for a second there, and so we just kind of regrouped. Saved up enough money to move out to Nashville, and I moved out to Nashville and made a solo acoustic record, just really quick to kind of reconnect with the whole point of why you do music. It's real easy to get lost in production and taking too much time on things and forgetting that, really what needs to connect is the song, and so the performance of that song is the most important thing. If you capture it in a pure sense that can connect with people, and we just moved up to Nashville and based out of there for a little while, and it's a hopping place. It's a great place to be. It's not it wasn't built for as many people that are there now. There's just so many people there, so it's really congested, and I think we got out at a good time. When we moved there, it was not quite as bustling. The town was really starting to happen outside of just the modern country thing. Jack White, the Black Keys, Kid Rock, Sheryl Crow, I think they just moved to town, and it was just there was an energy in the city that was really just cool and different and creative, and I think it's still there now. It's just a lot more people have flocked to it, so it's just a lot more congested, But we were really lucky. We kind of moved there at a time when it was really hopping right on the cusp of it. I
was, just kind of going back through your music and everything, and I was listening to what you have released of the new album, and there is a different flavor to your to your new stuff compared to what was out 4 or 5 years ago, and I didn't necessarily know about the move. But it does kind of, when you started talking about that with Steve, as far as when you got to Oklahoma, and then this album, does, you can hear the change in just your surroundings that merged over to the album as well.
Well, that's great. That's great to hear because that's certainly my intention. You try to, like I said, use your people and places that you're around as influences for the art that you're making. At least I do. And I haven't got to hear too many people's opinions on the record yet, so it's good. So far it's like one for one as far as trying to kind of conveying a theme that's hopefully more people will get that same thing out of it, because you knocked it out of the park. That's what you were supposed to say.
Well done.
Another thing that Steve brought up on my quiz, my town quiz, was Ray Wiley. What about you released a single called Ray Wiley Hubbard. What can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, I met Ray at a festival, I think in Idaho, and we just struck up a conversation. He was familiar with my music, and I was, of course, familiar with his music, and just kind of a mutual respect and a friendship started forming. So we just kind of got to know each other a lot better, and we we'd written songs together, and just kind of just kept in touch over the phone. And he's just got a million stories. His autobiography is just amazing. I was proud of myself. I sat down and read the whole thing in a day, I'm so my attention span is so short. So it's tough for me to sit down in one place and read a book. I'm usually a books on tape guy as we're driving down the road, or a podcast guy. So when I read that, I felt like I needed to go to Pizza Hut and get me a free little personal pan pizza for that. But it was but yeah. So I wanted to write a song that was inspired by what I love about what Ray does in his songs. There's always that groove. There's always that very Oklahoma influence. This kind of a Southern blues groove. He could probably come up with a way better way of saying it. He'd probably say something like funky Southern ass groove with the knocked out jeans, leather clad.
Sounds like him.
Yeah, but it would. So I just wanted to kind of capture that kind of groove, and then tell the kind of story that he might tell, and then it's kind of a tribute to him, really. But I didn't want to write a tribute that was like, well, Ray was born in Soper, Oklahoma, and I wanted to actually just kind of write a song in his kind of in the way I feel his style is. So that was the point of that song, and it's called Ray Wiley Hubbard, but it's not necessarily about Ray Wiley Hubbard.
Understood.
But it sort of
kind
is
of,
as well.
yeah.
Listen to it. Yeah.
What was his reaction, and how did you get that to him the first time? Did you just send it to him and like, hey, what do you think about this, or did he find it later?
Yeah. He dug it. It would have been really, really weird if he didn't, because I don't know how that would have went down. But no, he really liked it, and is flattered. And I don't know if you know Ray, but he's just the sweetest guy. He's just a really, really good guy, and very supportive of musicians and just people in general. He's just a good cat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the vibe I've always got from him. It seemed like it would take a lot for him not to like it. You know what I mean?
How can you not like it?
Right.
Well, now that being said, I think if he didn't like it, he would have.
He would have probably told you.
There would have been some sign of.
Right.
He's not afraid to be honest. He respects people enough to shoot straight with them. Which I value that in people.
Yeah.
Because especially in this business, it's so seldom that you get people that give sincere compliments, and and it's so seldom that people will just respect you enough to shoot straight with you if you ask him. And if you really want to know, the good thing about Ray is if you ask him, something, he's going to tell you what he thinks. He's not going to be mean, but he would, he'll be honest, if you ask him, and he dug the song. So it was kind of like, mission accomplished. I was real pleased with that,
Yeah, definitely.
All right. TJ, and I want to spend a decent amount of time talking about the new album if possible. So obviously I will hit the TikTok right quick. There's the link if you want to go pre-save it. It's hit the link in my bio. You also, if you're watching on YouTube, just click on the link. It's 2 clicks. It's free. It'll upload at 11 o'clock tonight. But the new album, Ranchero, comes out, as you mentioned, pretty heavy or pretty Oklahoma-centric. Shout out to Orson on the cover. Super excited about that. Can you tell us about the Ranchero itself?
Yeah, I think that Ranchero is sold now. It's Tiffany's. Has got her dad has a car lot here in Hugo, and so there's always these like cool cars coming through, and then some just really weird, funky cars too. That are there's been like this little minivan thing with like you know that comic book The Punisher, you know that.
Oh yeah.
With the shifter's got like a Punisher thing on it. And it's got like dice on the thing, and it's just a whole. So you'll get like all sorts of weird cars. You get these awesome old classic cars, and you'll get Rancheros, you get everything. So that was just a picture we had, and it's kind of funny because the like I said, you let your surroundings influence your art, and we would go down there when Orson was still alive. Now we do it with our new wiener dog, Orwell. But when Orson was still alive, we would go down. We get a Busy Bee cheeseburger, which is local cheeseburger place, and we go down to the car lot and just kind of in the summer just eat, on back one of those cars. And Rancheros are easy to do that, because you got the bed.
Yep.
And so we just took a picture of Orson, just because he looked cool on it. And I just, a few years back, and then so just kind of looking at it going like, oh, that's a cool album cover. Maybe you should just call a record Ranchero and put that on there. And but there's not really it wasn't a song called Ranchero, so I just used that and incorporated it into the, in writing this Ray Wiley Hubbard song. And it makes perfect sense, so now it's like intentional. It's like after the fact, things become intentional sometimes in art. And I'm always kind of trying to be aware of things. I don't want to get too like out into the, eccentric weeds here, right. But I don't know that art necessarily exists in just one linear time frame. I think that oftentimes it's kind of out of order. That things can actually be completed for something that's going to happen in the future, or something that already happened can be something that's created later. I just don't think that it's necessarily a linear timeline. It's like why sometimes you'll get you'll have a line in a song and you're like, I don't know what the hell this line means, but it just seems like it's just this is what the line has got to be, and I don't understand it, but when I sing it, it just feels right, and I just know it's right. And then like 2 years later, it hits you like why that's the line in the song, and why it's the most relevant line, and why the whole song is based around that line. I think sometimes you just got to trust that. And I think if you do it enough and you write enough and you trust that enough, then those things you're more aware of whenever things like that need to stay in songs, and you don't need to edit them out of them. So.
Well, we'll spend some more time talking about the album, but we have a treat for y'all. TJ has he's going to let us play one of the songs that isn't released. So it will be released shortly. I think I mentioned that. It's called Oklahoma Rose. And since we're at halftime, I think we're going to take a couple minutes and play that. If you wouldn't mind maybe just giving us a little intro on that tune.
Yeah, the Oklahoma Rose. It's the first song on the record. There's 2 co-writes on the record. This is one of them. I wrote this one with Tiffany. It was actually her. It was her title and a good chunk of the chorus. And so I took it and wrote a verse and kind of put the music to it, and then we wrote the second verse together. So it's a pretty straight up collab, on it, and nice. It works good because I don't have to, I own all the publishing.
Right, almost.
And yeah, well, she had, and she's
95% now.
She's got half the writers, yeah. And but no, I'm real proud of it. I think because I'm always talking about songs and probably just wearing her out talking about things that I like in songs and things I don't like, and being critical of songs, and talking up songs, and she's always been a very creative writer, just writing like stories and things, and just a creative like person in general. So just by default, she's now become this lyricist and melodies too. But she's got to sing them. She plays a little piano, but doesn't really she doesn't like play guitar and rhyme.
Right.
So I'll do that. So it's just one of those ideas that came out, and I was like, yeah, I want to write that. That's great. Let's finish that one. And became the first song on the record.
Cool. Well, Soul Gravy, can we listen to it?
Yep. Here we go.
All right, here we go. I'm going to go silent.
All right. The Oklahoma Rose. Here we go. Whoop. There we go. Ah.
She's high and she's low, strumming clumsy and stoned. Her dress calico smells of jasmine and smoke, and her lips cracked and thin, sipping blackberry gin. It's more bitter than sweet, now don't go there again. It's a feeling of leaving, it's a summer love exposed, it's a season of revealing, it's a cold and wicked blow. Her hand's still dripping, bleeding, but she just can't let it go. The Oklahoma Road. Neath the Payne County sky, to live's not to die, never saying goodbye, and the girl lives to be, the boy lives to fall. And love or in lust makes no difference at all. Love or in lust makes no difference at all. Summer love exposed, it's a season of revealing, it's a cold and wicked blow. Her hand's still dripping, bleeding, but she just can't let it go. Now she just can't let it go. The Oklahoma Rose, the Oklahoma Rose.
Yeah, man.
There we go.
Yeah.
If y'all don't want to download that, then I'm not sure we can be friends. So it's all right, but we appreciate you being here either way.
So we do have a lot of several questions in the comments, and I will get to them as we get to towards the to the end of this thing, and we'll make sure we grab those questions. So thank y'all for on YouTube and everything for letting us know you have questions and paying attention. So some good ones.
TJ, you're an album guy, and we appreciate that. Any thoughts on the modern world kind of pushes you to, not that you don't release singles, but a lot of folks are out there just dropping singles one after another. You obviously enjoy, I think, putting a full album out. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I put out some singles last year as well. I just kind of think it's, the mediums have always dictated, the way that art is delivered, and music's delivered. Whenever you could only fit, 3 minutes on a 45, that was just kind of the way that dictated how long pop songs were going to be. And so you got that thing, even down to the way that records were EQ'd in order to play best on a turntable would dictate how they were mixed, and so there's always going to be technology is always going to kind of drive what types of songs. It's strange. I do wonder if we're kind of heading for a time whenever we're going to have like 45-second songs, because it's just like
Attention span, right?
grab people, say kind of a very general idea that can be just used behind a TikTok video or something. And that's what it's basically going to be, soundtrack type things like that. I hope we're not going for that place. But I like both. I like albums for a more of a grand narrative. There are certain songs that I feel like they don't really fit on albums as well. They're maybe better as singles. I think there's different ways of putting music out. I think it's just I do like that we're living in a time where people are creating things and putting them out in the world, just not having to stress and labor over things so much, and taking, it's not expected that you have to labor on something for 2 years before you put it out and then put something out 2 years later. If your fans want to hear, more music, then you can give it to them. And if you put something out and it's a little bit different from what you normally do, and if they don't dig it, then it's okay. You just put something out like,
Right.
a month later or whatever, or you put something out and they love it, then maybe you wouldn't have put it out had it not been a single, so.
Sure. Cool. One of the things that I think is, I don't know, maybe a little bit different about obviously you're not afraid to experiment, and personally, I might not be your exact target audience, but I love people that experiment a little bit with sounds, and love what you do there. But one of the things that you do, and I'm curious, process-wise, you put a lot of time and research into some of these songs that I would call kind of historical songs. So off the top of my head, probably Rufus Payne, Girl in Blue, Bury My Bones, TVZ, Ain't Afraid to Die. Bunch of those songs have a historical kind of tint to them. But if not everybody is. Sometimes you just want to hear a song and hear the song, but if you like to break down lyrics and like to really understand or attempt to understand what's going on in the song, I think you're the artist for a lot of folks like that. So, but my question, I guess it's a super long-winded, but I'm curious what your process is to do the research, because there's no way you know all this stuff.
No, I don't know any of this stuff. For the folk type songs, you have to have some sense of, it's basically, a lot of folk music is just history put to music. If you can make it rhyme, that's even better. And so there are certain stories that are just, folk music where the kind of the tradition of it is it's telling stories before there was other mediums to pass along stories from generation to generation. And that's why oftentimes, the stories get bastardized and changed and people add their different elements to it. But that's also what makes folk music really, really cool is you lose the specific narrative and it becomes kind of its own archetypal story, and something that people can relate to. Whether maybe there's a specific character that a song was originally actually about, but it just becomes kind of the archetype for a situation. Maybe someone that the judge in the town, framed somebody, and whatever. If you look at I don't know why it's coming. The Night the Lights Down in Georgia just pops into my head, for example.
Sure.
And so that would be like an example of a corrupt like small government, for example. And so it's it's a specific story about something that happened in just one particular place, but it's just kind of the overall grand narrative is just the archetypal, corruption. And it can be in government, it can be in business, it can be in countries, it can be whatever. So folk music kind of does that. It kind of can start small, but then tell a much bigger story. And so so you've got to read obviously the things, or you can just make them up. Like William Faulkner, for example. That's a song it's very. So there's historical facts about that of just the time and place of what I imagine from reading things. The time period the way people would have spoke, what things people would have done in that period, which is post Civil War era type stuff. But then you create a story within that of these different characters and just kind of place them in there and try to tell a story that becomes a grander narrative.
Yeah, so I'm gonna need a post-mortem on that song because I've been listening to it for quite a while and I still struggle with it. So, but I love it all the same. But the rest of them, I feel like after a while, I'll get there and at least get what I think you're talking about, which is probably incorrect, but whatever.
Do you mean you struggle with liking it, or you struggle with understanding it?
No, I like it. I struggle with understanding. Well, I understand. So when I research, lyrics or whatever, I want to find out who the actual person, like the actual William Faulkner is. Obviously, it's not that William Faulkner, but just trying to, dig around and see if I can find out who that person from Virginia was and kind of what the story was. And sometimes I come up a little empty, but yeah, so it is what it is. Not everybody loves taking a lot of time with everybody's with the music. I do, so thanks for that.
Look, Steve, if you don't like the song, just tell me you don't like the song. Don't do
I like the song, I just don't understand it. We'll get to that later.
The song is a metaphor for America.
Oh. There we go. All right, now I got to go listen to it.
Now I love it. I hated it before, but now, holy cow.
Speaking of corruptible governments, I shouldn't have said that. All right, Soul Gravy, what do you have?
All right, so as far as your new album, Ranchero, that is coming out soon, within a few hours, I know you mentioned that you had another co-write on there, and also there is a cover, correct? Let's go with the cover. What's the cover?
The cover is an old Soul Asylum song, probably their biggest song, Runaway Train.
Okay. I knew that there was a Soul Asylum song, but I didn't know which song. So that's cool. I love that song.
And the co-write is John Jeffers, Whiskey Myers with the song "Bury My Bones." We wrote that song together, and John's a very underrated songwriter. I think people know him more so because he just shreds. He's on guitar. He's just a monster guitar player. But he's a hell of a songwriter as well.
Very cool.
Yeah, both versions are amazing. I know as soon as I heard Whiskey Myers' version, I'm like, oh, because I actually had heard TJ do that song before it came out on the radio. So in my head, that was, the original or whatever.
Right.
So they did a phenomenal job with it, but I love what you've done with the fiddle on that. And
their version, they kind of just that's the weird thing about covering songs. I've never believed in covering songs anything like the original version of them, because it's just just listen to that version, It's just, and especially when they nailed that take on it, with the mandolin and the guitars and things. So it was just like I had to do something different with it, and it works with the fiddle taking that role too. And so Chris, the fiddle player in my band, plays on fiddle. So
Yeah, he does a great job. Yeah.
yeah.
So I've heard different podcasts with you on it. I've heard the Jinx one and things like that. How you guys met. So if you want to know that story, go check out the Jinx pod and hear all about that. But how did you get involved with the Whiskey Myers guys?
So John lives in Paris, Texas, which is just right across the river. He's about 30 minutes from me, and I think the first time, I don't know if we met before we wrote that day on that song. I don't know if we'd met. Our families, like Tiffany's, and Tiffany's brother, they're close with people in John's family on that side, and so everybody kind of knows each other, and so we just got together to write, and that song came out, and we wrote it right here in the studio. And just in an afternoon, knocked it out, and yeah, it's pretty. It's good when it happens that way. There's not too much, laboring on it, but it just and people seem to like it. So
yeah, 95. I pulled it up on Spotify the other day. I think they have 96 million streams on that song. That's not awful.
No, and then with all the other thing, I know it went platinum. So with all the other Apple Music and everything like that. So
this is one place, right?
Yeah, it's just one place.
That's not awful.
So, no, it's great.
So I've seen you with I'm pretty. I could be wrong. I've seen you several times here in Memphis. I want to say with Ward Davis. Possibly, I was thinking I saw you with Whiskey Myers, but when you said that, that might not have been true. That may have been something. Either way, I think I've seen you 3 times here in town, and it was all solo. It was without a band.
In Memphis, I played with Whiskey and Jinx, I think, in Memphis. I think the Steel Woods. I think it did some shows at Steel Woods as well.
That was probably
That would make sense, right?
Yeah, because there was generally all the same venue, so the concerts start to kind of go together when they're at the same place. But so when did you decide? I mean, there's a lot of people that'll do solo gigs and they'll play guitar, maybe add a little harmonica. When did you decide to add the drums and the electric and do that deal? And how was that perceived when you first started doing that?
Maybe initially a bit out of necessity. I've just always you moved to Nashville and everybody there is great for the most part. I mean, there's just talent everywhere you go, and there's really not any. I mean, no one can really walk around and get a big head because it's like, oh, well, you think you're cool? Well, it's just like, look who's playing the Ryman tonight. It's just like, and that person thinks they're cool. It's like, well, Paul McCartney's in town tomorrow. And so there's always going to be a bigger fish. Right. And so you're always kind of trying to find a way to make yourself notice. And so you're always, if you're ever doing something that's too close to what someone else is doing, this is the way I always approached it. It means that you're probably not being unique enough, and I always respected people like Willie Nelson, for example. Like if you book Willie Nelson for like your festival and he's going to headline it and he can't make it, you can't really get a poor man's Willie Nelson. You just got to go a whole different direction because there's only one, And so I always thought that, well, that's the type of artist that you want to be. You want to be someone that's not really replaceable for whatever that thing is that you do. And so I've just always strived to do something as unique as, and not necessarily just for the sake of being unique, but just to try to do something that I haven't seen other people do,
Right.
And so the one man band kind of, and not that there hasn't been other people do one man band things. That's actually goes way back,
Right.
early folk stuff. but in trying to, basically taking my country and folk background and grunging them up with the one man kind of primal stompy thing. And so I did that for a good, years. And then the last couple of years, I've been playing full band shows again. So it's so I'm always just kind of picking up things from different eras and trying to create new things. And the one man band thing was interesting during those times because it was like certain times it was just like it was great, and other times it was just more of it's really very venue dependent, very sound dependent. It's people. It's tough to book something that people don't have a lot of experience with, that type of thing. If you're saying, well, hey, they say, well, is it like a country thing? Because people, it's like, well, yeah, but not really.
Country elements,
what you're thinking, and it's just like, well, is it a rock thing? Because you're wearing a cowboy hat, and so it kind of becomes this very, very, well, I guess definition of the word would be niche, it's because it's very unique and specific, and so that's the strength and the weakness at the same time. But it was a great time from a learning and just a growth experience, because it was just me out there. So if anything with equipment or anything went wrong, it was just like you just had to figure out a way to get around it, But ultimately, I had songs that I felt like needed a bigger orchestration, and you can only do so much. I was playing, bass drum and snare and guitar and harmonica and singing and trying to dance as much as I could, because that's really what I love to do. I love to dance.
Dancer, right?
But I would have these ideas for certain types of songs that I would want to do that just needed bigger things. They needed, strings, or they needed fiddle, pedal steel. They needed like a drum beat that gets it's not as much primal, but more shuffled, which is, more difficult to do certain shuffles when you just have a bass drum and a snare, and you got to play guitar at the same time. So, so for the last couple of years, it's been hitting it hard with the band. So putting that together and going out there and being able to orchestrate. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if it was like an intention thing, you know what I mean? To if you're opening up for a band and you're up there by yourself, if that was a thing, hey, listen to me, damn it, kind of one of those things, that. But
I mean,
and just to scratch different itches, like
merely
you said.
cost control.
Well, I mean, there's definitely elements of that, because one of the struggles that you will face if you're committing to just wanting to make art is you can't be too beholden to expectations and norms, and sometimes you get lucky and what you make as your art is something that's just accepted by people, and there's certain elements of my music that are just right in that thing, and then other things where it's going to be more of a certain type of person's going to like grab onto it, and that's actually the thing they're going to love. Whereas it's more polarizing stuff, If you play a slow acoustic ballad, that's more of a linear storyline, it's gonna resonate with a lot of people in a certain way. They're gonna be able to eat because it's a little bit more typical. But then if you follow that up with like a version of a song they love, like Waymore's Blues, but play it like you're a dumb kid in a garage with distortion and a lo-fi mic, they're gonna like actually not only not like it, but they might even feel like angry at you, So it's a very interesting dichotomy that you go through with that thing. But I selfishly kind of like that aspect of it. It's just a high contrast, and but you've got to be real about it too. You got to know that if you're doing something that's a little more avant-garde, you can't expect people to just widely embrace it, or it wouldn't be avant-garde. It's challenging people to reconsider, if they like something or not, and if they do, why, and if they don't, why, and there's I don't get mad at anybody that doesn't like what I do if they don't get it, because there's a lot of music that I know is great that I don't like, like I can't stand Steely Dan, and I know they're brilliant, and a lot of my musician friends are like, Steely Dan's the shit, and I'm just like, yeah, they're shit to me, but not from the player standpoint, but just from like it doesn't resonate with me. And so I realized that like that's going to be the same way with what I do for certain people. They're just going to go look. I just don't like what you do, and that's great. We can still be friends. I don't care, you know. I'm just making art here, you know. So,
Boy, Talbot, he's really pulling you in different directions.
Well, hold on here.
He's a huge
I
TJ
do.
fan and also a huge Steely Dan fan.
I know. I like Steely Dan. All right, hold on though. So
it's okay. That's okay.
it's fine. It's fine.
It's not
I've
fun.
learned a lot of things from TJ
Yeah.
about music and how to be like a better consumer of music. So here's a couple concepts that I learned just in having some conversations, specifically from TJ. So sometimes you're not ready to accept a song or an artist. Like you just certain people, kind of what you're talking about. You just maybe it's life experiences, maybe it's whatever. But that's a concept that you shared with me. The whole idea of a song being a snapshot, that goes back to what you talked about on the recording side. It's okay to like a person, but not the music. Yep. Which seems like everybody should get that, but sometimes it's hard to separate. And then the whole idea of doing covers differently, which you talked about before, and you have a bunch of examples of great songs that you've covered and gone a completely different direction. So shout out, you're educating people and providing entertainment as well, and smart.
I can't wait to hear the cover of the Soul Asylum song. I'm ready to hear that one. So a few hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe in a year I will be driving somewhere and a Steely Dan song will come on the radio,
And you'll be ready for it.
Yeah, seriously, maybe it'll just hit me, and I'll be like, "Whoa, where's this been my whole life?" And it'll be like, "That was Steely Dan." With
Right. There it is.
You know, now I don't think that's going to happen.
Maybe not.
It's possible.
Bob Dylan's that way for me.
Hey, Bob Dylan was that way for a long time for me, and I tried to get into it and couldn't because I knew you were supposed to be into Bob Dylan,
right?
And I'd kind of come from a very my country or my hero songwriters at that point was like Merle Haggard and Dean Dillon and Willie Nelson, people like that. So Bob Dylan just made no sense to me, and then once it hit me, it was just like a ton of bricks. And now I would say Dylan is my biggest influence. I mean, he is hanging out on the wall over there.
I see him.
And so it's definitely time and place, you know. And certain people can get you into things too. I remember I don't think I would have been into Dylan. Maybe eventually would have got there, but I'd bought a Ryan Adams record called Heartbreaker, and the first song I knew enough to know that it was influenced by a Dylan thing. So then after listening to Dylan, after hearing that song, then it all made sense to me. I loved it. I think the same thing with Graham Parsons. You know, certain people can get you into the music by just listening to someone else that's influenced by them. You know, it's a strange thing how it happens.
Very cool. All right. Well, we want to respect your time and get you out of here in the agreed to amount of time that we had for you. So this is the rapid fire section. I've made a couple audibles on these.
Get a couple of the YouTube or the comments. The questions in the comment. I feel like we should at least touch on really fast at some point in time. We can
go ahead.
After.
Yeah, go ahead.
Or go ahead now. Okay. Cynthia always has the good questions. She wanted to know if you have a song or album that you like to go to for a mental reset. Do anything come to mind right off the bat?
For a mental reset,
or like before a show.
I don't know if it's so much for a mental reset, but just kind of like certain standby records that I just will. I seems like I cycle through about the same 3 records over and over and over. Maybe it's more than that, but I know that I'm listening to Ryan Adams' Heartbreaker is a great one. Freewheeling Bob Dylan. Bruce Springsteen, Nebraska is a big record. It seems like I go to those records. And then in certain different times, like Dwight, Blame the Vein, you know.
Yeah, that's underrated one. Yeah.
Yeah, I just always kind of staying in that area. I really should probably be listening to a lot more like just the new stuff that comes out, but I just find myself I don't know, getting kind of just, I guess, overwhelmed by all of it out there. So I just kind of go back to things that are just kind of standbys for me. I also don't want to be influenced too much by what is the modern stuff. I feel like sometimes you can listen to it and it's like you realize you're just kind of you're not getting out of your box so much. At least if you're ripping off like the people that have been dead for like 30 years and no one knows. Less people know.
All right. And Stephanie wanted she said we all want to know the answer. Tennessee Jet is from Oklahoma. Were you Tennessee Jet before you moved to LA? When did the name change happen? Basically, is her question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I started playing music, my actual name is TJ McFarland, Irish, Scotch Irish, and so I'd always played in bands, and that was it was it was TJ McFarland and the Revolvers. It was different things, and so when I started doing the one man band thing, I decided I need to call it something different, so people don't expect songs from the previous things that I'd done, and just to kind of make it very clear. Also, there's a baseball player at the time named TJ McFarland. So if you were to search my name, you're going to get sporting news of this guy for like,
For the A's.
Forever. And so important to have a proprietary name. So that one wasn't taken. I was living in Nashville at the time, so to Tennessee. And then there's this movie called Giant that you'd mentioned earlier, Steve. There's a character in there named Jet. There's James Dean's character, and I was thinking, well, I like 3 syllables followed by 1 hard syllable, so Tennessee Jet, that sticks. And if people say, well, do you want me to call you Tennessee or Tennessee Jet? It was like, just call me TJ. It's the same thing. People always call me, so I just kind of I did that. I think it's just a way of just defining what that one man band thing was, and then since I'm basically playing the same songs, but with the full band, it just continues on. So
Understood.
Yeah, let me see this guy. This is the future right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is Orwell.
Well, very cool. All right, real quick, Lena wanted to know. I guess, just a statement. When you were writing poems back in the day, did you ever think that you would be writing songs or in the world that you're in now?
No, not at all. There was sign up for Little League, but there wasn't a sign up for being a band or anything, and so we didn't know how to do that. But just felt like I wanted to write things down. It was mostly short stories and weird creative short stories, and then
Gotcha. Good answer.
All
right, off to the rapid fire.
Yep.
Spotify Wrapped came out about 30 days ago. Any idea, or Apple Wrapped or whatever it's called, any idea it was at the top of your list in terms of what you were listening to?
That would probably be different mix references I was probably listening to, because all of last year I was producing the record. So you pull up things that are sounds that inspire you, or
Gotcha.
just different levels on things. So it'd probably be a pretty all over the place thing. Probably a lot of Steely Dan.
Yeah. Aja was at the top, or Asia was at the top of the list.
Them too.
Yeah. All right. So, speaking of albums, you gave us 3, but you can only take 1 on this desert island. Which one are you taking?
Probably taking Bringing It All Back Home, Bob Dylan.
Okay.
Because it's electric and acoustic or Highway 61. I don't know. That's a tough one.
2 good choices. All right. Dinner with one historical figure.
One historical figure. Dinner with one historical figure. I'll go with living, because it's just there's too many options. Probably Elon Musk.
All right. That would be very interesting.
Hold on. Theo Vaughn, and then Elon Musk.
Okay, yeah, Theo. We tried to make that happen. It didn't happen. All right. What do you see when you play, TJ?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. What do I always see when I play? Well, the audience is kind of a blur, because you're getting stage lights are hitting you. So oftentimes you're just kind of seeing just kind of like the conglomerate of all the different of everyone out in the audience. So I think you're kind of like, it's interesting because you're singing to even though there's a lot of people, you're just kind of singing to the general you, just a very like
Right.
Yeah, so maybe you're not even singing to necessarily the people there that night, but you're just singing to anyone that you wrote that song for, even whether they're there or not.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
That's an interesting question. I hadn't thought about that too much.
All right. Well, maybe next time you're up on stage, that'll cross your mind. All right.
Yeah,
So
think about Steve and Steely Dan.
no, please don't. Ideal green room.
The ideal green room is one with clean,
Clean's nice.
simple, not trying too hard, and private bathrooms.
All right. Solid. It's amazing the answers we get to that
The
question.
simple things.
Yeah, it really is. All right. One first concert that you attended, and then the first concert that you paid for.
Oh gosh. First concert that I attended. First concert that I paid for. Man, these are good questions. That would probably. I saw Merle Haggard at the Cain's Ballroom in Tulsa.
That's pretty awesome.
That may have been the first one I paid for. No, I saw George Strait in Tulsa. One of those. I don't remember which one. That'd be George Strait in Tulsa, I think.
Okay.
First one I paid for.
All right. And was that your first concert?
Probably like, yeah, it would have to be because I wasn't 21, and so it was like, I don't remember going to, and I wasn't the kid that went to bars or anything, so it would have been like the convention center or something like that in Tulsa.
Gotcha.
And so yeah, I guess that'd be the first paid. Yeah.
All right. You played. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just trying to think if that's true or not. I think that's probably the first. It's a good story, even if it's not. Tulsa Convention Center, yeah. Tulsa Convention Center would be first paid, yeah.
All right. Sounds good. You played some amazing venues, a lot of venues that folks on here will answer this question with, but what's on your bucket list of venues that you haven't played yet?
Yeah, there'd be a Carnegie Hall, probably. I mean, that's probably on everybody's, because Red Rocks was up there and
Right.
was able to knock that one off the list, and the Ryman was able to knock that one off the list, and yeah. So I think I've been blessed. I've been able to play a lot of these places that have, but Carnegie Hall, probably the Gorge, maybe.
Gorge.
I've heard good things about
seems
that
amazing.
one too.
Yep.
It's weird, most of the time, little secret is like the venues they're kind of all just bars, but there are a few that are certainly much more than that, that are actually like the reason that you remember why you got into music to begin with. It's really easy to forget after a while, even, but there's certain places, like when we played Red Rocks, it was just like, oh, this is really what you wanted to do when you started playing. You feel that every now and then. The Fillmore in San Francisco was another time where it was just like, oh, this place is really cool, And,
You got a poster of that somewhere around here. That was with Willie, wasn't it?
That was. Yeah, I get to do 3 nights with him out there. So it was just which is the cool thing about Willie is like, you play your set and then you go to the, backstage area and you don't know who's going to be hanging out. Like I drank with like Ramblin' Jack Elliott like every night of that thing. Just we'd drink bullet bourbon and just talk, and he would tell stories and you're standing. Willie. I get to do about 3 months with him, and he would at the end of the night he'd do a couple of gospel songs, and so he asked if I wanted to come sing, like I Saw the Light with him and stuff, and the World Circle Being Broken, and so it was like, of course, and so you're standing side stage waiting to go up there, and you like look to your right, and you're like, oh, there's Jimmy Buffett standing there, or you're like, it's just always somebody because it's Willie
Right.
Nelson,
Yeah.
and the first run I did with him was in Vegas, so it was like even more so like you never knew who was going to be at the show. And so yeah, those things that you definitely remind you, like like this is a very peaks and valleys type job.
Sure.
And so sometimes it's good to stop and remember that, like, okay, cool, you got to this is a peak right now, so like take it in, because it's just like next month you might have a lockdown for an entire year and you can't do anything, so it's like try to keep an even keel and enjoy and be grateful for the things when they happen, and not get too down whenever things are whenever you're locked down for a year.
So, Gravy, I know you want to ask the question about playing with Willie, so go ahead.
No, go.
No?
What? No. I'm not sure where you're going with it.
Well,
if it was really good, was it a really good time? Was that what you?
Well, no. I think
okay.
it had to do with more just keeping time. Well, it'd be kind of nerve-wracking playing with Willie, right?
Yeah, definitely. As far
I
as
mean, I don't know. For most humans, it would be.
Yeah.
So,
I got the little the note that I don't want my phone to die on you, so I grabbed the light power and.
all right. Yeah,
And,
that's our fault.
and
We've
so-
gone over, and I apologize, but there are too many good questions that we can't answer.
Well, I don't want to deprive you of your rapid fire questions. You seem really excited about it.
I am. I'm very excited about my rapid-fire questions.
But now we're plugged in, so hit me with them.
I actually only have one more. And then we're going to get to the really important question. We have one important question to end the show with. But this question is your opinion of tribute bands, yay or nay?
Tribute bands?
Yep.
You say? I say yay, because for starters, it's like anyone that's like making a living playing music, and if they love what they're doing, it's just like only an asshole would tell them that they're like they shouldn't do it or enjoy it, especially if they're why one of you guys hate tribute bands.
No, we just asked the question. We just asked the question. No, not at all.
Did I just call one of you guys an asshole for not
No.
liking it? Okay, all right. Because I think that it's just like first of all, I don't, and a lot of people do this, and I'm sure I've been guilty at some point, in my life. But I don't shit on success, even if it's something I can't stand. But it's just like if there's a big audience for it and someone's liking it and people are out there trying to live their best life, and I think with tribute bands or cover bands or anything, if you're playing music for a living or playing music even just because you just love playing music and just sharing these songs, I mean, I think that's great. They're not, it's a different business than what I'm doing, or if they're playing your own songs and touring, and compared to like say a local cover band, I think it's all great. And man, sometimes who hasn't started out in cover bands and learning different songs, and then you figure out how to write them yourself, So I just think if you're going to be a tribute band or cover band, be a great one,
Nice. All right.
Make it really good.
Thank you. That's the end of rapid fire, and we probably have a couple cleanup things, and then the big question.
All right. Make sure you go follow TJ on all of his socials if you don't already. Also, his album is coming out at midnight. I guess that would be 11 p.m. Central Time, correct? And
Less than 2 hours.
Make sure you go give it a listen, give it a pre-save if you haven't already. Yep, go pre-save now, and then make sure you listen when it comes out. It'd be a nice little thing to listen to on the drive in to work in the morning and all that kind of stuff. So, all right. So this question started out as a joke on episode 1, and now it is a requirement that we ask. So, TJ, what is your favorite Little Debbie snack?
This is an excellent question. I'm gonna go with the seasonal one, just the little white Christmas trees.
Yeah.
Okay. Extremely
Interesting.
popular.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. He didn't pick oatmeal cream pies or Steely Dan. Boy, Tallow, this is really
over to
no.
you.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I like oatmeal cream pies much more than Steely Dan.
Thanks, TJ.
Because I like them at all. But no, they're excellent.
It's just
levels. And if you don't like oatmeal cream pies, maybe you're just not ready to receive that flavor yet. Maybe
right. Try again later.
It's a good point. That's a great point.
Yeah, definitely.
TJ, thank you so much for joining us. Sorry we went a bit over, but good stuff, and can't wait to hear Ranchero. Y'all go pre-save it, all right?
Happy to do it, and thank y'all for having me on. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.